Today, we are diving into the absolutely incredible story of the Maratha Empire. We're going to see how a power born in the rugged mountains of Western India rose up to challenge and, for a while, completely dominate the entire subcontinent. It is a fantastic tale of brilliant strategy, radical new ways of thinking, and, in the end, a stunning reversal of fortune.
Now take a look at this. This isn't some ancient historian talking. This is Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery, one of the great military minds of World War II. He actually studied the Marathas and saw in their 18th century campaigns a total masterclass in strategy. That kind of praise from a modern legend tells you right away, we're not just looking at old history here. We are looking at timeless military genius.
So where did this all kick off? Well, it wasn't in some grand palace or imperial court. Nope. It started in the heart of a rebellion, led by a man who would become an absolute legend. I want you to just picture the scene for a second. It's the 17th century in India, and the whole landscape is just dominated by these two giants. You've got the sprawling, ridiculously powerful Mughal Empire in the north, and down south, the formidable Bijapur Sultanate. Now, these weren't just kingdoms, they were institutions, seemingly permanent fixtures of power. To even think about challenging them would have sounded like complete madness. But out of the craggy, forested terrain of the Western Ghats, a new leader emerges. Shivaji Bhonsle. He was ambitious, super charismatic, and a master of his environment. The mighty Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb, he just looked at this upstart and dismissed him with total contempt, calling him a mere mountain rat. And well, that was a dismissal he would seriously come to regret.
See, Shivaji wasn't just some rebel warlord. He was a nation builder. He had this powerful vision, a concept called Hindavi Swarajya, which basically means self-rule. In an era that was totally dominated by these vast, distant empires, this idea of local people ruling themselves, it resonated deeply with the scattered Maratha warrior clans. He didn't just lead them, he gave them a common cause, forging a unified, highly motivated force out of all these disparate groups.
Okay, so how could this new, much smaller force possibly take on these established empires, right? They knew they couldn't win by playing the old game. So Shivaji wrote a whole new playbook. And this playbook was called Ganimi Kava. I want you to forget everything you think you know about huge armies lining up on a flat field. This was warfare that treated the landscape itself as a weapon. It was the art of the unconventional, a strategy built on lightning speed, total surprise, and an intimate, deep knowledge of the land that no invading army could ever hope to match. This really breaks down the genius of their whole approach. First, they mastered the terrain, turning hills and forests into their personal fortresses. They moved with incredible speed. Their cavalry could literally appear out of nowhere and then just vanish. They launched surprise attacks, but not on enemy armies. No, they hit their fragile supply lines, the lifeblood of any large force. And this is crucial. They avoided the big, pitched battles they knew they couldn't win. They just refused to play by the enemy's rules. And finally, they used deception, creating all sorts of confusion and fear long before a single sword was ever drawn. So let's see this playbook in action. In 1659, the Bijapur Sultanate sends this massive army under their most fearsome general, Afzal Khan, with one mission: crush Shivaji once and for all. Khan was confident, arrogant even. Shivaji, who was massively outnumbered, agreed to a personal meeting below Pratapgarh fort. To everyone watching, it looked like a surrender.
But it was a trap, a brilliant one. Shivaji came prepared, and in their one-on-one confrontation, he killed Afzal Khan. That was the signal. His hidden forces swarmed the now leaderless Bijapuri army. The victory was total. And look at the spoils. We're talking 65 elephants, thousands of horses, and a massive war chest worth 1 million rupees. This wasn't just a win, it was a massive injection of capital and resources that basically funded their entire movement. It proved that their crazy, unconventional strategy could deliver some very conventional, imperial-level wealth.
Pratapgarh proved that the mountain rats could win and win big. But to build a real empire, they had to evolve. They had to go from being raiders to rulers, capable of meeting their enemies on any terms. Now, what's so interesting here is the evolution you can see. On the left, you've got Pratapgarh in 1659. That's a classic guerrilla ambush. But fast forward just 13 years to the Battle of Sarkhel, and something fundamental had changed. Here, the Marathas met a huge Mughal army in an open field battle, the very thing they always used to avoid, and they won.
decisively. This marks their transformation from a hit-and-run force into a true conventional military power. After Shivaji, the empire's whole structure evolved in this really fascinating way. Real power started to shift away from the king and into the office of the Peshwa, or the prime minister. From their capital in Pune, these hereditary Peshwas became the true masterminds, the architects driving the empire's explosive expansion all across India. And no Peshwa was more brilliant than Baji Rao I. This guy was a military prodigy who perfected Maratha tactics on an imperial scale. His campaign at Palkad in 1728, that's the very one Montgomery called a masterpiece. He basically used pure speed to run circles around a larger, slower enemy, proving that the old guerrilla spirit could absolutely be used to win entire wars.
But hold on, because Maratha power wasn't just confined to the land. Recognizing how important the coast was, Shivaji had actually founded a navy, and under the command of Admiral Kanhoji Angre, it became a force to be seriously reckoned with. Angre was without a doubt the master of the Arabian Sea. He didn't just fight the big European naval powers, the British, the Portuguese, the Dutch. He defeated them repeatedly. By controlling those lucrative trade routes, establishing his own shipyards, and just plain asserting Maratha sovereignty over the waves, he built an economic and military powerhouse on the water that was absolutely essential to the empire's survival. So, with a dominant army on land and a powerful navy at sea, the Maratha Empire expanded at this breathtaking pace, reaching its absolute peak in the mid-18th century. But it was a peak from which the fall would be sudden and incredibly steep. Just let this sink in for a moment. By 1760, this power, which was born in the mountains just a century earlier, controlled a third of the entire subcontinent. A third. From their heartland in Maharashtra, their influence stretched all across India. They were, without a doubt, the preeminent power. And then came Panipat, a single battle that would change the course of Indian history forever. In 1761, far, far from their homeland, the main Maratha army met the invading Afghan forces of the Durrani Empire. This wasn't just another battle. This was a monumental struggle to decide the future of North India. And the outcome? It was an unmitigated disaster for the Marathas. It wasn't just a loss, it was a catastrophe that shattered an entire generation of its leadership. So, what on earth went wrong? Well, in this tragic, ironic twist, the masters of mobile warfare found themselves completely immobilized. They were surrounded, their supply lines were totally cut, and their army was starving. This forced them into a desperate final charge, which led to just devastating losses. The very tactics of cutting off and isolating an enemy, tactics they had perfected, were now used against them with lethal effect. The defeated Panipat was a blow from which the centralized empire just never recovered. It shattered their aura of invincibility and led to these fatal internal fractures as powerful Maratha chiefs started acting more and more independently. This collapse created a massive power vacuum right in the heart of India, a vacuum that another rising power, the British East India Company, was perfectly positioned to exploit. I mean, it is an incredible arc, from mountain rebels to rulers of a subcontinent, and then it's all broken in a single day. Which leaves us with a really fascinating question. Is the true legacy of the Marathas the brilliant military tactics that generals still study today? Or was it the power vacuum their sudden collapse created, that opening that ultimately paved the way for the British Raj and changed the course of Indian history forever?